Well, welcome to the Launch Podcast with a slight difference today. We're very excited to be on Facebook Live, taking advantage of the fact that really everyone is kind of cooped up in their houses. Home offices have exploded. Officeworks is excited. And I'm excited as well because we've got one of the all-time greats on the episode today. We've got Tom Hector. For those of you that don't know Tom and his lengthy list of accomplishments, Tom's a partner at Harris Real Estate down in Adelaide. In his peak, he's done 207 transactions in a year. That's 1 year for 207 transactions. A six-time REISA Agent of the Year finalist, and he's also spoken at ARIC 3 times, 2012, 2016, and 2019. We're really thrilled to have him on to this podcast episode with a difference. Tom, welcome to Launch.
Oh, thanks for having me, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here and really excited to hopefully help the audience out and help their businesses in this really, really tricky time.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, we're trying to get you on for quite a while, so it's fantastic to finally have you on here. How, I guess, first and foremost, are you coping with the changes and everything that's been laid on our path or in our path for the last couple of days?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I was fortunate enough to have a conversation, I reckon, 3 weeks ago today with a good friend of mine, Tom Panos, who we always know. And I spoke to him about this time at about 12 o'clock 3 Fridays ago, and he said, Tom, batten down the hatches. Life's about to change forever. We'll never, ever see this again in our lifetime. And he was dead right. That basically Friday, I woke up that morning and the phone stopped ringing. There was absolutely no engagement from buyers. And ever since then, it's been a very, very tricky 3 weeks. But having said that, though, the only thing I'm saying to my clientele, my team every day of the week is everyone's in the same predicament. So you got to roll with the punches, and realistically, you can't do anything apart from going back to the complete and utter basics, which is about communicating effectively with your clientele. But more importantly, the market will recover. You can't force the market, but what you have to do is be forefront of mind. So when they are thinking of moving, whether it be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, that you are going to be getting that opportunity. And all I've been doing the last 3 weeks is doing exactly that, just getting back into my database, speaking to every buyer, every seller, every potential seller I've been doing business with, and just having those good conversations.
Yeah, that's all you can do, right? And we come from a position of helping. We were actually on a webinar this morning with the agency team, and we just spoke about how we always say we're a part of the community and we help the community. Well, this is actually our chance to demonstrate that and to go above and beyond. But mate, I'm really interested, before we sort of talk too much about, the here and now and what's on our plate for the next couple of months or 6 months, as ScoMo said yesterday, I'm really interested in your backstory, because I think you've got a pretty interesting and unique story to a lot of people. You came out of school and you pretty much went straight into real estate. Was it a thought process going through school that you knew real estate was for you?
It's funny you say that. So I graduated in 2008 at a school called Rostrevor College, which is a Christian Brothers school about 10 kilometres from Adelaide CBD in the northeastern corridor of Adelaide. And I was always a massive avid tennis player growing up as a kid. I idled Leighton Hewitt in the era of in the 2000s, and Roger Federer is my absolute pinnacle today. But more importantly, I knew that tennis was not going to be for me. I was never going to be good enough for that. So I had a plumbing apprenticeship lined up. I never really wanted to graduate year 12, but Mum and Dad really forced me to throughout that year of 2012. And I was fortunate enough to compete in like a junior golden gavel competition. It was called Auction Idol, and it was governed by the Society of Auctioneers and Appraisers here in South Australia. And it was a second year running. So it started in 2007. In 2008, there was 27 students around South Australia. And fortunately enough, I won that competition and then got offered a job at the biggest independent company in 2009, being Toop and Toop Real Estate. And that's where I really learned the craft. But probably the number one factor is the reason I'm in real estate and I've had the success today is I got to meet my idol, my mentor, my business partner today, which was Phil Harris in the early days of 2008 whilst still at school. And he coached and mentored me. And then in 2009, he decided to start his own business late 2009. And we started in 2010 at Harris Real Estate. So the journey's been immense, but I've just put it down to hard work. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. I could not picture you as a plumber, by the way. I don't think I've ever. This is the most relaxed I've ever seen you in a t-shirt. Letting it all hang out as I am as well, and that's really the dress code for the now, I think. So, what did your parents do, or did your parents have much influence over you in those, I guess, formative years and coming out of school?
Yeah, definitely. So my dad started as a bank teller at the age of 17 and grew up very close to where they live today, and he actually ended up finishing 36 years later or 34 years later, I can't be exact, but at Westpac. So he started from the ground up and was a relationship manager working in the commercial sector towards the end of his career. And that's pretty much where I got all my sales traits from. So asking lots of questions, building lots of relationships, more importantly, just being a real person in real time, and being a professional salesman, because I think there's so many people in this industry that are just salespeople, but to become a true professional and become a good at what you do and learn the craft takes a lot of hard work. So mum was in the wine industry. She worked as a wine marketer for a number of years. My brother's a business banker now for NAB. So come from a very, very modest family, but very grateful for what the last 10 years has brought, because 10 years ago, it was a very different pitch to where my life looks like for me now.
So I would have to say, Tom, if there's two things about you that I think are really unique as an agent, the first one I would say is you work incredibly hard. You've got an incredible work ethic and a consistent work ethic. The second thing, though, which I think is most unique to you, is you ask more questions than any human being that I've ever met in my life. I remember not the other day, we spoke at our conference, or you spoke at our conference a couple of years ago, and we went out for dinner, and we were all kind of relaxed about going out for dinner. And there was a guy called Shane Brocklebank, who's a good friend of mine. Shane, who's in New Zealand, was in the car. And Shane got in the car, and you just barraged him with questions. And not, most people ask questions to either A, deflect the conversation away from them, or B, for any other reasons. But you seem to ask questions from a place of just, you always want to expand your knowledge base. And I remember Shane, after you got out of the car, you don't know this, but Shane said, "Oh my God, I feel like I just had 3 job interviews back to back to back." So where's this come from? Is your parents naturally inquisitive, or your dad is? Yeah,
exactly the same as that. So he just asks a number of questions, and I don't even know I'm doing it. That's the thing. So I'm generally intrigued about people's lives. And I must admit, I'm not going to lie to you, over the last 10 years, a lot of people think this guy's too full on. I'm not going to do business with him. He's asked too many questions, and they're too many personal questions, but other people love it. But from my point of view, the questions I ask is because I like to know about people's lives, and I generally do care. It's not because I'm trying to be an interrogator. I generally want to know about their lives and their livelihood. And at the end of the day, a lot of people say to me, "Tom, you know so much about my life, but what about your life? How's it all going?" But that's just the way in which I was born. And my dad's obviously helped me along the lines of that, but I do generally care about people's well-being.
So how do your family dinners go? If you ask 1,000 questions and your dad asks 1,000 questions, how does that play out?
Oh, it's been interesting over the years, but obviously I don't really know exactly how it works in the last few years, but look, I think people have got used to it, our immediate friends, and all my friends know me personally from school. So they all know what I'm like now. But at the same time, though, I actually generally care about people's livelihood, and more importantly, I love what I do.
Your mum must be very tired, very tired about answering questions, I'd imagine. So, Tom, you came out of school, you won Auction Idol, which then set you on the path. You joined Toop and Toop, who are a great company down in South Australia. You followed Phil from memory. Phil left Toop and Toop to set up Harris Real Estate. You wouldn't have been very old when that all transpired. How did that go? And that would have been a big leap of faith for you to take at that age, I'm guessing.
Oh, definitely. So I'll never forget the day. It was about November of 2009, I should say. And Phil basically had said, "Look, yeah, we're starting Harris Real Estate. I want you to be a part of it." And I was 18 at the time. I was turning 19 in February the following year. And Mum and Dad thought it was a very probably poor decision, especially going from a reputable brand like Toop and Toop, who were the biggest players at that time in Adelaide, to now starting on their own. But all I do know is I was in real estate for Phil. I wasn't in real estate because anyone else. I was in real estate for Phil. And the journey started, and the first 6, 12, 18 months were very, very difficult. But when there's a will, there's a way. And at the end of the day, I had no turning back. I wanted to make it work. And that's when I started farming an area and just becoming a household name. So I just basically watched who the best agents were, like the Matt Steinwades, the James Tostovan, also Phil Harris. And basically what I did is I just mimicked their business. So I asked a number of questions. I sourced who the best were. But the problem I face with salespeople today is you can tell them exactly what you want, but you got to actually do the work. And the problem with most 22-year-olds, and we've got a number of them at our organisation, and we've got a number across the country, is that they think they want to make it in real estate, but if you're not ready to do the work, I hate to say it, it's just not going to happen. You have to do the work.
Yeah, and it's the great thing about our industry, right? You get rewarded for the work that you do, and it's not immediate, but those rewards always generally come following work. I've got a couple of questions about your relationship with Phil. I guess a 2-part question. The first part is, why Phil, mate? Why was it that Phil and you connected so strongly from the start?
He was best mates with Leighton Hewitt growing up, so he was a great avid tennis player. So that was number one factor. So I could understand how, like, obviously he was right into my tennis, so I knew exactly how much hard work he would have put into it. He was very much driven like me, though, very similar mindset. So very disciplined, very, very disciplined, day in, day out, but very Mr. Consistent. So having one bad day, but would never make it a 1 week or 1 month. He'd be always very consistent and just always trusted him implicitly. So I know he's had a good heart, so he'd never do the wrong thing by you. So that's probably the main reason why I went on this journey with him. And the journey's been really, really fun. Like, I'm 15% sharing the business now, and we speak obviously pretty much every single day. I literally got off the phone with him 20 minutes ago, and we're just trying to improve our business every single day. But more importantly, I couldn't be in business with someone better, because every single day Phil wants to improve as an individual and as a business. And for the next 20, 30 years, no matter how good we are, if you keep improving, the competition will be far or very far behind.
So if people are seeking a mentor, what should they look for?
Oh, someone they can definitely trust for a start. The problem in this industry is that there's so many people out there that you might be able to trust for 1 week, 1 month, but then they obviously do the wrong thing by you. They might screw you on a deal, and they've got to have a similar mindset to you. Mindset is everything, the bigger picture. You got to play the long game, and real estate's all about playing the long game at the moment, in particular right now. But the whole last 10 years, the mindset Phil's taught me about playing the long game has helped me where I am today, because if you're wanting short-term success in this business, it's not the business for you.
And if you are a mentor to somebody else, how can you be an effective mentor? Because I imagine it's probably changed for you now, in that people look for you to be a mentor to them rather than you looking for mentors for you. What I guess, attributes do you think good mentors have, and how do you try and put that into play?
Understand their situation. Like, not everyone wants to be the next Tom Hector. Not everyone wants to make 100 phone calls a day. Not everyone wants to sell 200 houses per year. So what does that mean? Like, understand that what's their why? Why are they getting out of bed every single day? How can I influence their personal life? How can I influence their fitness and health? How can I influence their scripts, their dialogue? So working out what's most important to them and making sure the wheel of life, they can have a 6 or 7 or an 8 out of 10 in all those different facets of the business. Because once we get your health and well-being right, real estate is an easy game. But the problem is there's so many blockages based upon other factors in their life.
So you're well known for this 100 calls a day. Is it a myth?
Oh, no, I'm not making 100 calls a day at the moment. Definitely not. In the early days, though, I had a coach in the first 2 years, and I'm not going to lie to you, there's probably days when I punched out anywhere from 80 to 150 calls consistently. So I didn't have anything else to do back in those days. So it was very, very different to what it looked like today. But it wasn't a myth in the early days, probably the first 2 years. But now it's the 20 to 40 calls a day. But they're good quality calls with good quality conversations. So I've punched out 30 calls this morning. I literally just looked at my accountability sheet just now, and between the hours of 8 and 12, I'm just trying to stay into simple habits at the moment. At the moment, I'm still doing afternoon. I'm trying to work on my business a bit at the moment. I'm still calling, but between 8 and 12, I'm very, very disciplined about ringing my database. And that's when all my money's been made in the last 10 years.
And I remember when we were booking you to speak at our conference, and you actually said to Jess, I don't know if you remember this, but I think you said to Jess that you prefer not to speak in the morning because that's when you make your calls. And you wanted to be after lunch. So there you go. And you had your list in your hotel room. Yep, you had your list in your hotel room, and you were there doing your calls.
Absolutely. It's very, very important. And habits don't change, because real estate hasn't changed one bit in 10 years. Sure, it changes with technology, etc., but like relationships, disciplines, it all evolves to making sure that you're a world-class agent.
Yeah. So you've really, I guess, cemented your farm area. Rostrevor is your farm area in Adelaide, is that right? What sort of market share would you have in Rostrevor?
Consistently over the last 5 to 7 years, I've had anywhere between 30 and 40%. So okay. Consistently, absolute worst case would be 25%, best case 40%. So I'm selling anywhere between 30 and 40 properties every single year, calendar year, in that suburb alone.
And most people who are watching this or listening to this would give their left arm to control their own area like that. What have been the fundamentals for someone who wants to start in an area and make it their own? And understand this is it's not going to happen in 2 months or 3 months. It's a long-term strategy. What are the fundamentals for them to put into play to make that start happening?
I was talking about this with a colleague in my office who I was coaching the other day, but you've got to really start from the ground up, and there's no scattergun approach. You can't just start letterbox dropping and door knocking if you're not actually capturing the data. So I think there's 2 fundamental factors in relation to how to work a farm area. Number 1 is you call it a dwellings database. Number 2 is a contacts database. So when I first started, I wanted to get every single dwelling in my database. And it's called Whether It Complete Data. We used back 10 years ago. Now we're using Agent Box, and there's got a prospecting formula in the Agent Box category now. But once you get every single homeowner in there, whether it be their first name, their last name, their postal address, what the property sold for last, and then you just work street by street, and you work slowly. You door knock it, you cold call it, you collect data, you build relationships. So, like for an example, I knocked on a lady's door 10 years ago in January of this year, and I spoke to her this morning. It was an anniversary call when I rang Helen Pettit. I don't know, her husband died 2 years ago, and I said to her, Helen, I door knocked you just over 10 years ago. And she goes, I never forget that day when you rocked up my doorstep. And it's all about starting that conversation and then evolving that into a lifelong friendship. So like speaking to customers in the last couple of days, I've got people for 9 years I've been calling. Are they going to call anybody else? No, they're not. But what I'm doing is I'm just providing really clean, concise information to them, not pestering them. And then when it's time to obviously want to sell, they give me a call. But really importantly, I've just made sure that every single dwelling's in my database. I then can communicate effectively with them, set an activity schedule so you know exactly what I've spoken about last time, their dogs, their kids, their whatever it may be, and build that relationship from there.
So 10 years ago, you would have looked like you're about 12, because you don't look very old now. You're 29?
29, going on 30 next February. So yeah, I was 19 10 years ago, and I had Clark rubber soled shoes. So the old Clark rubber soled shoes, because I'd wear through my shoes too quickly. I'd look like an absolute kid. But you know what, though? People used to give me business because of how hard I used to work. I don't care what you say. Like, I got a listing in Diali Lahiri at number 3 Sheila Street, Rostrevor, 2.2%. Never forget it. She goes, I'm going to give you the job because you knock on my door a lot and you work extremely hard. Now, at the end of the day, I wasn't the best, but I was just there. And that's what people don't remember. People don't remember that because, and like, you create your own luck. Like, when in between 19 and 22, did I really enjoy going out door knocking? No, I didn't, but I had no choice. I had a choice, but you know what? It's all taken effect now because my mobile phone just rings.
So how often do these people hear from you in your farm area as a general rule, and all the other exceptional stuff, which is
communication I've had with that particular person, but they're obviously getting a CMA report once a quarter, just listed, just sold. But if I've met someone and open for inspection, or I've met them through door knocking years ago, they're hearing from me from anywhere from once a month to 3 months to 6 months to 12 months. It all depends on what that customer needs and what they've done with me in the past. But that's, again, called salesmanship. I use that word a lot at Harris Real Estate. I coach the sales team at Harris Real Estate about salesmanship. You know, you need to know when to call that particular client. When are they actually thinking of moving? If they're moving in the next 2 years, they need a call every 2 to 3 months. Any less than that, you're not gonna win that piece of business. You're not going to shopping list. Any more than that, you're going to probably annoy that customer. So we call that salesmanship, and that's what I've been very, very good at.
So as a starting point there, like you said, a CMA once a quarter is a basic foundational start in your farm area, and then everything else is over and above that.
But I still think as well, cold calling has in its effect, like huge amounts, and door knocking. Like, you obviously probably can't door knock at the moment based upon this virus, but over the course of my career, knocking on doors, as much as you don't want to do it, if you catch them at the right time, they respect you for getting out of the way and doing it. So, but you got to play the long-term approach. I just think about it because I used to speak to Matt Starnwood on the phone. He goes, just think about it as farming. You grow the seeds, you put the seeds in the ground, and over time it starts to grow. It's exactly the same as real estate. You start basically saturating your market, and then all of a sudden, I used to basically, and I don't want to be stupid about this, and all the listeners out there listening, I used to judge my success based upon how many complaints I was getting. Because the more complaints you're getting, the more people know who Tom Hector from Harris Real Estate is. I couldn't care less. Take me off your mailing list. If I ever see you again, go to hell. You know what? At least it's working, because there's always a certain portion that will ring you.
There you go. Interesting strategy. And I guess there's people here that, and it's really common that people would struggle with rejection. People like being liked, which is totally fair. You would have had your fair share of rejection across the way. What should be your way of dealing with people who don't want to hear from you?
There's just no magic bullet, Justin, in relation to that. That's the hardest thing about this business. But you just got to basically, I've had nights before where I've been told to go to hell, call the C bomb, the F bomb, whatever it may be when there's early days. But you just got to turn a blind eye and think, you know what, this is why I'm going to have success in this business. I kept putting it back to the reason I'm going to have success is because 98% of people can't do what I'm doing right now. And if I'm just prepared to break through, that is going to be my success. And don't get me wrong, there were days when I didn't want to do it. There were days when I had to go and walk around the block. There were days when I had to probably shed a tear. There were days when I had to ring Phil and said, mate, this is all too difficult. But you know what? If you always get back to your absolutely fundamental why you're doing it, well, then somehow you might go down for a week or two, but you're going to get back on that journey.
So you've done 200 sales in a year. In your early days, you're making 100 calls a day and still clearly working at a really frantic pace. It's a bit of a thing that gets spoken about a lot in our industry about work-life balance. How has work-life balance looked for you in the early days? How does work-life balance look for you now?
So in the earlier days, there's absolutely no question that, sure, I'm 29 years of age. I've got a beautiful home here in the eastern suburbs of Adelaide. And yes, I haven't met the love of my life, Justin, if that's the answer you're leading to. But I am single at the moment. But having said that, though, yeah, sure, there's a growing period in real estate. I must admit, I don't care what anyone says. Any top performer I've spoken to around the last 10 years of my career, the first 2 to 3 years, it's about survival and it's about actually making it in this business. And whether we like it or not, you have to work hard. So finding a partner in the early days was very, very difficult. Sure, I've had relationships in the last few years. They haven't evolved. But having said that, though, my work-life balance now has absolutely transformed like you would not believe. No more Saturday auctions. So I'm doing all my auctions on Fridays, obviously subject to this virus, which is going on at the moment. But I don't work Sundays. You're not going to catch me on a Sunday doing an appointment. Not open homes, no auctions, no nothing. But it takes a number of years to get me there. But absolutely, I'm working a lot smarter than I was 4 or 5 years ago.
It actually wasn't the question I was asking, but I like how you threw the advertisement out there anyway. I reckon there's a reality TV show there somewhere, find Tom a partner. Although I do believe I've heard sources there might be someone that is showing some early promise at this point.
Watch this space.
Watch this space. Well, we'll make sure we update everyone later on with this. So what do you do outside of real estate? What do you do with your time and what are your interests outside of work?
It's very hard at the moment because no sports on TV, but I know you love your NFL. I'm a mad AFL supporter, massive Crow supporter. I absolutely love the ATP circuit. I was at the Australian Open this year. I went to Wimbledon last year. As I spoke to you about before, Roger Federer is an idol of mine, so I'm an avid sports lover. Love bushwalking. I've got Murray Conservation Park, which is just up the street. Massive food and beverage lover, so I love a good glass of wine. I've got Penfolds within walking distance of my house. I've got the Barossa Valley not too far away, McLaren Vale, so I love indulging in nice foods, especially on Sundays. And I do love the beach as well, so outdoors. So I just, outside of real estate, very simple life, very simple. Love the simple pleasures, a nice lunch, a nice dinner, the beach, sport. I've got a beautiful park next to my house. I go on, I've got a tennis courts there, so I have a hit with mates sometimes. So just the simple things.
So one word answer, who's better, you or Phil at tennis?
Phil Harris by far would beat me 6 love hands down. He got professional points. He's the real deal.
Did he?
Seriously.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he got ATP points back in the day and he's a very, very good tennis player. Take nothing away from that.
Your idol is Roger Federer. Unashamedly, you love Roger. Have you ever met him?
No, I watched him play about 2 years ago at the Australian Open, but never met Roger, no.
You would have met Leighton though?
Number of times. So Leighton's best mate is a very close friend of mine.
So what's it like meeting a hero and did it live up to expectations?
Very interesting. It's at the end of the day, they're just normal people. That's what I probably realise now. Like I'm friends with a lot of the Crows footballers. Like I've got a lot of friends that play for the Crows, and for so many years I thought they were God, but they're just real people, Justin. And the problem is people get carried away with the fame, etc. But it must be hard for them to live a life in always the spotlight. I couldn't imagine it, but right now, I think my whole belief structure based upon having success in real estate is they're just normal people. They just want to be treated like normal human beings, but unfortunately they can't be. So Leighton's a great guy. One-on-one, he's perfect. He's good fun to be around, but obviously the media blow it out in different portions, but it's all good fun.
So you said when you were in the tennis ranks, he was your hero at that point, pre-Federer days probably. Were you hat backwards getting the come on going? Was that you?
A lot of come-ons, yeah. The hat backwards at times, only on probably the big matches, but the old Nike sleeve. He used to have the Nike colourful sleeves in the early 2000s when he was in the final Australian Open, lost to Marat Safin. I think it was 2002.
I remember that. He had a golden run that summer. So every second night you come home, you chuck the TV on and you go 5 sets with Nalbandian and all other.
About 6 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. It was the latest start latest finish ever at the Australian Open. I never forget that. So, yeah, they were the days when he beat Now Bandied at Wimbledon. And I used to watch, I never forget watching Mark Philippoussis beat Andre Agassi in the semi-finals of Wimbledon. I can't remember what year it was, but ended up losing to, I think, Pete Sampras that year. But obviously the Federer era, even when Leighton beat Federer in the Davis Cup, he was 2 sets to love down, a breakdown, and 1 in 5. And I watched him obviously play Federer in the US Open final 1 year and lost. But even remember that match in 2001 when he won his first Australian Open and beat Pete Sampras. So those are all iconic memories to me. And you know what? It's about real estate for me as well. It was like 2013, 2014 when the market was breaking through. And I was breaking through. It's very similar, very similar. Like making the top 100 versus making the top 10 is exactly the same as real estate. Real estate, it's all about just getting through that first 2 or 3 years and then breaking through and obviously having all the success. Because there were times where, like 2 years ago in March of 2018, I sold 31 houses in a month. Like in March of this year, last month, I should say, I sold a dozen. In February of this year, I sold 19 houses. So I'm still transacting a lot. So, but I'm doing it over a long period of time. And that's where I think that's why I've got so much respect for Roger and Rafa, because they've been doing it for so long.
Yep. Interesting that you talk about that. You talk about the volumes that you do. You run an EBU. How does your EBU look?
Yeah, so I've got a professional assistant that works in the office, hours of 8 till 5, doesn't leave the office, purely office bound. I've then got a buyer's agent.
Well, hang on, mate. What do they do? What's their primary core task?
So just purely customer service with relation to vendor management, marketplace reports, organising ads, organising conveyances. With the volume you're doing, there's a lot of work to do that. I've then got a full-time buyer's agent. His job is to basically work with my buyers and sell the properties for me. I've then got a junior agent. That junior agent basically is another buyer's agent / listing agent. So their job is to produce me income plus obviously sell my property. And then I've got a full-time, I call them professional gopher. So they're basically out there doing errands for me. So building inspections, valuations, pricing property, all those tasks that take such amount of time when you're in the volume. So in the last couple of weeks, I've had to make some big changes in my team. And at the end of the day, I'm going to get through this. I want to keep my team on. I don't know how long for, but I'm taking it week by week at the moment. But who knows what the future holds. But over the last 5 years, probably 3 years since I've had a 5-man team, before that as a 4-man team, I've needed my team, because with the volume I'm doing, it takes a lot of hard work.
So with your buyer's agents in particular, do they have full autonomy, or if it gets to a negotiation, do you usually take over?
Full autonomy, absolutely. I don't really sell much anymore, to be upfront with you. I'm purely listing. So
that takes a lot of trust, mate, to put someone in that position. How long were they in your team before you entrusted them with those responsibilities?
One of them's been with me for a year. One's been with me for 8 months. But in the first few months, I did a lot of deals because I'm doing a dozen to 15 properties a month. So they're learning pretty quickly. And then I'll jump in if I absolutely have to at the moment. But you know what, though? I absolutely don't worry. The employment contract and the amount of interviews they go through to win a job in the Hector team, it's very, very intense. So I want to make sure I've got the right people. So Matt and Angus, I can implicitly trust them. They're doing the right thing by me.
I can only imagine what it would be like being interviewed with you, because had it happened to me a number of times. So if it was actually a formal job interview, I can only imagine how much more it would be. With that 5-man team that you've got, look, 5 people is more than some offices have operational. That must create its own logistical challenges. How often as a team do you get together, and what lines of communication do you use between each of you?
At the moment, we're just communicating at 8 o'clock every morning on our phones. We're not even using Zoom at the moment. We're just merging those calls and doing phone interviews. I still love it. And then 8 o'clock in the morning, we're meeting every morning at our offices, and we're just basically talking about the day that is and day it was. So we're talking about what's on for today. We've got a strict agenda. We go out to our data, add to our systems and procedures, and then we're basically working on deals. And we speak a lot, though. We speak a lot. We've got a channel on our phones, Hector team channel on our text messages. So we're texting a lot each other. So it works extremely well. But my team are like my family. So I love them, and we have a lot of fun along the way. And that's what I do that's what I love about my job. I love it. And I want to evolve them into becoming professional salespeople one day as well.
So on your Facebook page, I don't know if you know this, but the tagline you've got on your personal Facebook page is "Living the Dream." Did you know that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you living the dream?
For my sayings. So anyone that knows Hector, well, I get called T-Hec, TH, Hectic, TH a lot actually, Tommy Heck. But I say a number of sayings all the time. Living the dream, I say LG, like equals life's good. And I also, so everyone knows me for my sayings, and that's a typical saying of mine. So that's my slogan on my Facebook.
Beautiful, mate. So tell me this: you became a partner last year, the year before?
No, I got about 5 years ago. So I
5
bought
years ago.
a staggered buy-in. So I was a staggered buy-in, probably longer than that, actually, 60. I think I bought my first 5% into Harris Real Estate when I was about 22, 23. So it was a long time ago.
And do you have any ongoing management responsibilities, or do you focus on selling?
No, I don't. I'm not a part of the management team at Harris Real Estate. I do consult with Phil a number of occasions in relation to decisions that were made. In the last few weeks of what's going on, I haven't had a massive say. I've had to obviously make some decisions on my own with regards to my team, but definitely though, I'm there to coach and mentor the sales team a lot. So there's 60 agents that work at Harris Real Estate. So I get a number of calls and people reaching out for help. So I do try and help them as much as possible. But I'm definitely more of a hands-on salesperson at Harris Real Estate, here to produce revenue for the business.
So how do you balance that time? Because you're in position of time when people call you for advice, people call you for help. Coaching and mentoring is a timely thing to do. How do you balance that off with the thing that actually matters for you and probably for Harris at large, which is putting sales on the board?
Pretty much it's just a chunking your time again, knowing your ideal day and ideal week. So between 8 and 12, Justin, I'm very hard to catch. And then I really look at my diary now, and if I haven't got much on after 12 and I don't feel like prospecting, or I feel like I should go out there and help someone in my business, I'll go and do that. I don't feel as guilty as I did 5 years ago when I didn't prospect, because I've got that level of abundance of business. Yep. But it's more about just chunking your time, Justin, and owning your time. And the problem is in this salespeople is, I heard a great comment. I still never forget it. I went to Jason Andrews' conference going back, I think it was 2013. I'll never ever forget this. It was like a light bulb moment in my business. Mark McLeod came up and spoke, and he said, the reason salespeople in this profession never ever survive is there's too much freedom. And it just resonated with me, because at the end of the day, there is far too much freedom in this business of real estate. People don't have enough accountability, and that's the whole reason why people don't succeed.
That's a good concept, mate, because funny, most people get into this business because it does afford you freedom. But it's the thing that suffocates you.
And the problem is at 9:30 on a Tuesday morning or 10:30 on a Thursday morning, I feel like going for a coffee. I'll go for a coffee for a half an hour. I'll go and call a friend. I'll go and see someone in the office. And you know what? No one cares, but it's you. And that's been the biggest, hardest thing teaching salespeople, in particular in the early days for me. I was always governed by making lots of calls. And the more calls you make, the more opportunities you get. The more opportunities you get, the more listings you're going to generate. The more listings, well, the more sales you're going to make. And Phil always says in any marketplace, he always taught me, his first boss taught him this: control the stock, control the market. So if you get the stock, eventually they're going to drop, and you just got to control the stock.
So a question on that, and probably not now, it's not the best example, because clearly it's different conversations that are taking place at the moment. But let's go back to a beautiful time 2 months ago when no one had really heard of this. You have your call list. You've got 25 people in your query, and you're just checking in to say g'day, to stay in contact with. What are you saying to them?
Hi, Justin. It's Tom Hector calling from Harris Real Estate. Trust all is well. I just wanted to catch up this morning and see if things are still very much on hold in relation to you wanting to make a move there on Malpa Street, or you're still contemplating getting something bigger. Zip your lips, see what they say. Let the conversation evolve.
Beautiful. That easy.
Concise. And then from there, I know that things, when I spoke to you last, were on hold. I know that I just wanted to let you know that a recent sale price took place up the street for $865,000. It was a fantastic result. There were 3 registered bidders on the day. How things progress with your place? You're still planning on making a move, or you're still very entrenched in your lovely home? So I'm just using very clean, crisp dialogue. I learned so much from James Tostovan. Just go and listen to James Tostovan over and over and over again. Never the word touch base. I hate the word. Whose base are you touching? You're not touching anyone's base. It's called catch up.
Can you say that original dialogue again, mate, if you don't mind, in case someone's sitting there at their screen?
Hi, Justin. It's Tom Hector from Harris Real Estate. How are you going?
Yeah, not too bad, Tom. How are you?
Very, very well, thanks. I just thought I'd catch up this morning. It's been 6 months since I spoke to you last in relation to your property there at number 19 Malpa Street. I know you were contemplating making a move. I just wanted to see if that was still the case, or you're still very entrenched there for the time being.
Yeah, beautiful. And the key message again there is you're not touching base, you're catching up.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day, look, if anything ever does change, Justin, I'd absolutely love the opportunity to represent the sale when the time's right. And I'd be thrilled if you remember me. Have a good afternoon.
Yeah, great. So what are you saying now, mate? Because clearly it's a different conversation now. What are you saying?
Really clean dialogue. Hi, Justin. It's Tom Hector from Harris Real Estate. How you going?
Not bad, Tom. How are you going?
Very, very well, thanks. I just wanted to catch up really and see how everything's going in this testing time. It's pretty unusual out there, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's not very good at all.
Yeah, how's life with you and the family? Are things going well? Is your job in jeopardy, or is things going really well with yourself, Justin?
Yeah, mate, just lost the job actually. So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, and then literally, Justin, I'm just letting the conversation evolve.
Yep.
But you got to remember, these people I'm calling know who Tom is.
Yeah.
So making cold calls right now, it's going to be very difficult. But these are people that have spoken to at least 3 to 4 times before in the last 10 years.
Yep.
So people will talk to you.
And your calls you made this morning, how was the response? You got people chatty, not too chatty?
Very chatty. Any conversation went up to about 15 minutes. I think my longest was 15 minutes. So these are all just people I've been dealing with in the last 10 years of my life, though. Some potential vendors, some past buyers. But again, just people just catching up with you. And the best thing about now, everyone's at home. Everyone's happy to have a chat. Everyone is.
I actually thought that you might be outdoor knocking in a hazmat suit or something. I thought that might be your go.
But at the moment, though, with what these conversations are evolving, I'm not even mentioning real estate. I'm just talking about their personal life, etc. And again, some people open up, some people don't. But you know what? It's a numbers game.
Isn't that so important, that message, that at the moment it does run deeper than real estate? You know, it's not about calling and trying to be transactionally focused. It's calling about from a place of helping.
Absolutely. And more importantly, right now, people just want to know you're there. And people I've had that many people say, thanks so much for the call, Tom. Thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate the phone call, Tom. And a lot of people as well, I've had 4 or 5 people text me in the last couple of weeks, like past clients, friends of friends saying, Tom, thinking of you in this tough time based upon your legislation. I can't believe what's happened. I hope you're going to survive. I've got other clients just saying, geez, it must be hard for you. And people actually generally care like good clients. And I'm very fortunate that my success in real estate has given me so many good relationships.
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well. I, being an auctioneer primarily, when Scott Morrison got up and said real estate auctions are banned, I think a lot of people assumed that meant auctions were illegal and couldn't proceed in any format. So yeah, it is heartening the amount of support you get from people you actually don't realize care, and they say a message to say, hey, I hope you're going okay. And I think the more that we can do that to other people, the better we're going to be at this present point in time. So Tom, I want to change speed a little bit. You 29, single, you live alone, and you built a massive house. It's a pretty big house, right? It's like 5 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms or something.
It's a 330 square meter home, so it's pretty large.
Are you planning for the future for a large family to be moving in?
Oh, it was for the area. I built it for the area because I live in a nice suburb here in Adelaide, and I do enjoy it. But yeah, sure, I've had lots of friends come around and stay there and had a good time. So look, at the end of the day, yeah, probably would have done things probably differently when I first built it, but I had a relationship at that time. So I don't regret it at all, Justin. I do love living here, and I've got a beautiful park next door, and I'm sure things will happen in due course.
I've seen photos of your house, mate. I wouldn't be regretting it either. It's magnificent. So I noticed on your bio, it said that you're a 6-time finalist for REISA Agent of the Year. Have you ever won it?
No, and I'd love to ask you why. So
right, 6-time finalist, and you've never won it.
2 times runner-up. So they've had a competition running. So the first 4 years it was only finalists, and they'd have a winner. Then now there's gold, silver, bronze, and I've become a silver the last 2 years. So this is a winner.
And we don't want to make light of this, because this is actually a really interesting thing, I think. How do you deal with that rejection? Because you get rejection a lot, but you probably don't get that sort of rejection that often. And then once a year, you're putting on your best tux, you're going in there and you're hearing someone else's name read out. How do you deal with that?
The volume of sales, they're not probably. Look, it's been very. There's been the week leading up and the week afterwards have always been difficult the last 2 or 3 years. I soon get over it, because awards don't mean anything in this business. It's about the customer. It's about your success, and it's been the best version of you. But having said that, though, Justin, I'm going to continue to go in that award until I actually win it. That's my goal. So I've got a pact with myself. I want to keep going in it till I win it. Whether it takes 15 times, whether it's 10 times, I don't know. But you know what? I've got a never give up attitude, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to win it.
And that's a credit to you, mate, for not packing up your swag and saying, oh, it's all too hard, or it's biased, or it's this or it's that. So surely you can't be too far away, right?
Fingers crossed. I thought that last year, but you know what? The lady that won it last year, I commended her immensely. Like, she's one of the best top end agents in Adelaide. She works for Toop and Toop Real Estate. She's doing great things, but you know what? I'd always love to win it. So we'll wait and see.
Next year. I've got a feeling that 2021 will just be your year.
Fingers crossed.
Let's hope so. You have got, I guess, a bit of a presence. You've done a lot of speaking. You've spoken at ARIC a number of times. What was that like?
Loved it. Yeah, I love it. I really do love public speaking. I think that's been very much, very much given to me by my auctioneering skills in the early days. I've never had a big or nervous reaction speaking in large audiences. I do a bit of public speaking around the country now, and I just love sharing my story and helping people out in relation to real estate, because I do love this business. I absolutely love the thrill of the chase. This business is all about based upon the prospecting. It's not about selling. It's about finding the business. Because at the end of the day, we all know once you get the business, it's you've got the business normally for a number of months before you do transact it. But I just generally love this. But where else in the world can you have a lifestyle like real estate? It's pretty phenomenal.
So your first year of speaking at ARIC, you weren't nervous?
Oh, sure, I was nervous, but I spoke from the heart, though. Absolutely. I was only 20, I think, one at the stage. And yeah, there was a few nerves running through my mind. My speaking probably wasn't the best, but sure. But I wasn't to the point where I was going to pass or anything like that. I was a bit nervous, but I think it went really well. Yeah,
good, mate. Well, I remember seeing you, it must have been 2016. I think I was there and I saw you speak, and I thought you were very impressive. So yeah, and you've done some speaking, but you've mentioned it's not a real focus for you because it sort of draws time away from what your core focus is.
I'll do certain speaking engagements now over obviously interstate and overseas. I've done a couple in New Zealand in the last 12 months. So I've enjoyed that. I saw you in Christchurch just on a year ago for that speaking for the victims. But having said that, though, yeah, I want to make sure that with the volume of houses I'm selling, it takes a lot of toll out of my business, especially being out of my business for a couple of days and trying to live a life where you're not working Sundays and Friday afternoons.
So you finish Friday afternoons, you don't work Friday hours?
Very rarely at the moment. So this afternoon, sure, the market's a bit slow at the moment. I've got a couple of Zoom meetings, one with my business partner, Phil. But having said that, though, after this, I've got my PT coming around at 1:30 and I've got a session in my backyard. So I'm trying to basically do workouts during the day at the moment, just breaking up my day. Calls in the morning, bit of PT, bit of lunch, and then, because at the end of the day, right now, the market's pretty much slow to the point where the only appraisals I'm going to, I've had 2 appraisals this week. I've got one next week, but you can't force the market right now. There's no one transacting.
Yeah, and if you try to force it, it'll just reflect badly upon you. You've always said, you say Friday auctions are an integral part to your business. Why Friday?
Because that for me was about trying to get my Sundays back. And I always say, Justin, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are big listing days at nights. So I've always thought about doing on-site auctions or in-room auctions on those nights. But I always just have this routine now, starting at 9, finishing at 5, depending on the number of auctions I've got on site. In Adelaide, they do work. Sure, people have to get time off work, but I'm trialing online auctions. I've got a few online auctions hopefully taking place over the next 30 days. But I love it. I never ever would do a Saturday auction unless the vendor definitely requests one. But in the last couple of years, it's happened very rarely.
Hasn't anyone ever told you that auctions have to be on Saturdays?
Oh, always. A lot of buyers and a lot of sellers. Buyers always say, why are you doing it on Friday? Under the vendor. I just say under the vendor's request. But then I just put it back on the vendor saying, you know what? For me, though, in my business, if I was doing Saturday auctions, I wouldn't be able to do the level of open homes. And then on a Sunday, I'd be doing all open homes as well. Because I did that back when I did 207 sales, probably the year before that. Sorry, I did 182. I was doing all Saturday auctions. I was finishing auctions at 2, 3 o'clock, doing opens until 5 o'clock on a Sunday. It was non-sustainable.
Yep. And then you become a poor version of yourself because you actually don't get that time off and that work-life balance, as you said.
I used to wake up on a Monday morning dreading life. I just could not work anymore. And when you work so much, you actually lose hunger and the fight to win.
That's a good message. When you work so much, you lose the hunger and the fight to win. Because we get this a lot. People always tell us auctions have to be on Saturday, and clearly our peak volume is on Saturdays. Although now with it being online and digitally, that's starting to change. So it's interesting that you based, I guess, your whole philosophy around that. I've seen some videos of you and you Facebook Live a lot of your auctions on Fridays, which is cool. Because the other thing about that too is your auction stands out because there's not any others going on at that time. If you jump on Facebook Live at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, there's auctions galore, which then dilutes the amount of people that are going to watch it. I've noticed you call most of the time in chinos.
I do. Yeah, I've got a very relaxed lifestyle here in Adelaide. Don't know if everyone loves that, but my marketplace, especially with my clientele, it works extremely well. I think Friday's a day of like relaxation as well. So people come out. A lot of people take the days off work because a lot of people bidding have to get time off work. They get a day off. So in chinos, it works well, Justin. I've never had someone say, "Why are you in casuals today?" Works well for me.
Yeah, isn't that funny? An agent that we actually call auctions for, he wears shorts and deck shoes, and people always resoundingly say to him, it's so refreshing to see someone dressed appropriately because though this suit thing, particularly in Queensland, and you get hot down in Adelaide, but nothing like what we get up here with the humidity, it's baking. And if it hits 30, you've just got sweat pouring out of you left, right, and center, and it's not good for you. It's not good for anyone who you're not in contact with them anymore, but anyone that you might have been in contact with in the past. You're doing shirt changes midway through the day. It's just not a good environment at all.
No, I think they work really well. And yeah, the chinos, the sports jacket, the pocket square, bit of a tie goes all right for me.
Yeah, well, I noticed you had one where you had no sports jacket, you had chinos, and you had the sleeves rolled up. So that must have been uber casual that day.
No, that was a classic example. That was my biggest auction ever, Justin. That particular auction happened in two months ago. So price guide was 1,050,000. It went for 1,271,500 under the hammer. There was 22 registrations at Thursday at 5 o'clock. There was basically probably 150 people at this auction on site. The funny thing was, though, every person in that crowd stood in the shade. So as the auctioneer, I had no choice but to be in the middle of the sun. So I had my jacket on for the first 10 minutes, and then I rolled up my sleeves midway through the auction, through the bidding, got my sleeves pulled up, put the sports jacket off, and called the auction.
Been there, mate. Been there. You're in the sun if it's hot, and you're in the rain if it's raining. In the wet if it's raining.
Always the auctioneer's the left one out, mate. They're always the one out the back in the hot sun. So, and everyone afterwards came. I had a few people afterwards came up to me and said, "You did a great job." So it was very interesting though. That property was hot property.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. Good to hear. So, what would you say to yourself if you could talk back to Tom, who's about to launch his real estate career? And now you've been successful, so clearly there's not a lot you probably need to change or would want to change. But what advice would you give back to yourself when you were starting?
Oh, just basically there's probably nothing that I would do differently next time. I really mean that. Like, I don't regret anything I did in those early days. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Anyone that knows me personally, I'm not a massive social media fan. I don't post everything about how good I am or what I'm doing for my clients, et cetera, et cetera. I just basically am fanatical about two fundamental factors. In the early days, it was door knocking. Number two is calling. And I don't think that changes. You've got to saturate an area, you've got to build data, and you've got to build real relationships in real time. So I think the most important factor that anyone listening in the room is, like, you've got to actually build relationships over a number of years, because that's the way you build clients for life. If you always got this scattergun approach real estate where you're just hoping for business based upon letterbox drop or referral, I hate to say it, you're never going to list property at good commissions, never going to listen to you on the price, because I don't know you, they don't trust you. Whereas a lot of my clientele now, like, I listed a property 2 days ago. She rang me last week. She's basically downscaling. She's moving up to the Barossa Valley. Now, I went in there at 2.2%, 650,000. It was no questions asked, but I'd been ringing this particular client every single year for the last 8 years. So it felt like she felt guilty if she didn't use me. And that's what the problem is in this business, is it's not the prospecting you're doing today. You're missing out on that in 5 years. So every day I don't ring, I'm thinking it's not my business going to be affected now. It's going to be when the market shifts. Because all I'm trying to do for me right now is I know the market is going to move back in Adelaide and in Queensland and in Melbourne and Sydney. After this virus takes place, it could take 6 months, it could take 12 months, but there's going to be a point where my mobile phone is going to say, you know what, Tom, I want to sell my house. Tom, I want to sell my house. I've just got to wait for that. And every single day, in the meantime, I have to make those 30 or 40 calls. Because if I make 30 or 40 calls the next 6 months straight, I guarantee you the market's going to implode in 12 months. Beautiful.
And it's such an unsexy thing, but real estate's a long game, right?
And that's the problem is that if you're looking for the short-term success, it's hard work. And the clientele I've put up with in this time is that most of the relationships I've get, don't get me wrong, there's a certain luck, and you might meet someone tomorrow and you might list their property and you sell it. But if you want longevity in this business, hard work pays off. Like the harder you work, the luckier you get. I got told that every single day in the first couple of years in my career. It's dead right. And all these people that want to get into real estate and they think they write 100 grand one month, they write zero the next month. It's because they fluked it, but they couldn't sustain the levels of prospecting.
So, mate, you've been fantastic and you've been generous with your time and also with your knowledge and expertise. The one question that we ask every one of our guests before we finish as the last question, and I've got a feeling I might know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you. We're going to ask it anyway. If you had to describe your real estate career in 3 words, what would you say?
Good question. My number 1 would be discipline. That's number 1. Number 2 is intense. Probably think that, Justin?
No, never.
Discipline, intense, and ferocious or hungry.
Discipline,
hungry.
Intense, hungry. I thought you were going to say living the dream.
Okay, no, definitely not. No. At the end of the day, I think that sums up my business though. Living the dream is another one, but I do love the sun. For anyone that knows me, I love getting a tan. I absolutely love the sun. I've never gone to the snow. I've been there once at school, but if you ever want to get on a holiday, I'd always choose the sun over the snow.
Terrific, mate. You've been fantastic. And I'm sure everyone who's watching or listening gets a greater insight to what makes Tom Hector tick. Mate, thank you again. Been a pleasure to have you on the Launch podcast and looking forward to catching up with you again nice and soon.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you so much for listening. Cheers, guys.
See you guys.